Ladies and gentlemen, if you were cruising around in 1975 this week and hit the radio, this song would have been the number one song in the country at the time. It was only ever over a week. But nonetheless, great song. Sister Golden Hair by America. I will show my age. I was not yet 6 years old. Or 7 years old, sorry. So that should show my age a little bit. But welcome to another edition of Student Body Rights. I am Ryan Neff, your host. Thank you, America. This is the show dedicated to all things college football. Coming on right now will be Mr. Bob Gaughan. I have to do it upright, though. I play every fight song for that particular school before I bring my guests on. The Buffalo Bulls fight song, ladies and gentlemen. That's right. They had a good year last year, by the way, in the MAC. Tell people, if you're not tuning into one of the big games or whatnot, and you want to turn into some action, action is always competitive. I think it's an underrated conference, to be quite honest with you. But here he comes. That's Mr. Bob Gaughan. Thank you, Bob, for coming on.
You got it, Ryan.
So let's just get into it here from last year. I believe they were 9-3 in the regular season. 9-4. I'm sorry, 8-4. And then they beat Liberty in the bowl game. Overall 9-4. Just look, they got hammered by Missouri. They got hammered by UConn. The Western Michigan game was back and forth. And then, of course, Ohio having the year that they had. But overall, 9-4 is nothing to sneeze at.
Well, no, it was a huge improvement from the year before as well. So they had one of the bigger improvements overall. And, you know, people, when they got the new coach, even though Pete Lembo had success at Lehigh, had success in the MAC at Ball State, was a great, special teams coach at South Carolina. You still, you're wondering, especially with first year coaches, how good is he? How is the team going to respond? And I think everybody in Buffalo was very happy with Pete Lembo in his first year and what he brought and the atmosphere, which I think was a change from the coach before. So people are kind of ecstatic at what Pete Lembo did in his first year. And they think that, moving forward, only bigger and better things to come.
Again, the Buffalo, I put the Buffalo Bison on X. I don't know where that came from. I'm thinking of the baseball team. Obviously, it's the Buffalo Bulls, ladies and gentlemen. And again, Bob Gaughan. Radio pregame, postgame for you? Because I see you're a host.
Yeah, I do the post-game show. I'm also on the halftime. So I do halftime and post-game show.
Okay. So forward to spring. Did they have a spring game? Who knows what teams have spring games? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. the spring game is gone by the wayside for many teams, but not UB. They did have the spring game.
So what are our takeaways? I'm trying to look at the roster here, losses and gains from last year. What were the major losses and what were the major gains maybe in the transfer portal?
Well, I think the one of the main things about UB to know is that they've been able to keep their good players here, which is rare for the mid-major. So the one thing that you should take away from last year is there were only 3 teams that brought the exact same team from the last game of the regular season to the bowl game. And 2 of those teams you would expect were Army and Navy. The third team was UB. So that's where I say the continuity in what Pete Lembo has brought to the table is something that is kind of rare in this day and age of college football. Pete Lembo is kind of trying to do it what we would consider old school, where can't compete money-wise. So what can he compete? He's got to have the culture. Because there's not going to be, not that there's not NIL money, but come on, let's face it, you're not going to be able to compete. So he's got to have a great culture. He's got to have great communication. And I think that's what a lot of people that have come and a lot of old players that have come back have talked about what he has brought to the table. So in terms of what you asked, I think the big person that they brought in, because the big question was quarterback. They lost their quarterback, CJ. So they brought in Taquan Robertson, and Robertson had been at 3 bigger schools. He really hasn't played that much. He was at Penn State, Kansas State, and UConn. So he obviously, is not as good as Drew Alter at Penn State, or he'd still be there. But UB is hoping that he will be a very good MAC quarterback. He's in his last year. This is kind of his last chance. So that is the number one question. Every other position, if you want me to go through, they've actually got returning starters. But the big question, of course, is the most important position, and that is quarterback. So, how good is this team, going to be? Is this team going to be just a bowl team, which I think they will? I think that, the floor is maybe just a bowl team. The ceiling could be win the MAC, but that is going to be predicated that their transfer quarterback is really good. So if he's really good, yes, they could win the MAC. If he's just average, I think they go 7-5 and still make a bowl.
So when I go back to last year, now nationally, I was looking at the rankings. I mean, we could just sort of like throw those out because it's completely. Look, they can't compete with some of the big boys. Northern Illinois beat Notre Dame last year. I would still say sometimes the MAC can be competitive in the bigger games. Scoring last year, offensively, Buffalo was 3rd in the conference. Defensively, they were 6th. I'm just going rushing. They were 4th. Offensively, defensive, they were 4th against the run. I go to passing. Passing, they were 9th in the conference. They were 7th. Let's see. Offensive efficiency, they were 7th. Defensive against the pass. Look, it seems like if they improve in the passing game on both fronts, they could have maybe a special season.
No, you're right. So the offensive line is solid. They got 3 starters back on the offensive line with Tyler Doty, Trevor Brock, and Henry Tabansky. They also brought in a new center who Jake Tim, who's a graduate transfer that they're very high on. So they think they're definitely solid on the offensive line, 4 out of 5 positions. That running back situation, you're absolutely right. They bring back a 1,000-yard runner in LJ Henderson. So they're solid at running back. They're going to be solid running the ball. The question is passing. They do bring back Victor Snow, but I really think that the guy that they have high hopes for was injured last year. Nick McMillan, he's a local product out of Canisius. I think they thought he was going to be their best receiver last year. He got injured, missed most of the season. So I think the receiver position, you're absolutely right, is where they're going to be looking for. And I think the main guy that they hope will really improve it will be Nick McMillan. And they even moved one of the receivers, just to show you and make your point. They moved one of their running backs, Mark Anthony Scott, I think, to receiver in spring, because I think they felt like they're good at running back, but they need help at receiver.
What would be a successful season for a Buffalo quarterback this year?
Well, I think that, you're going to have to limit the mistakes because I think they're happy with their defense. I think they think they're going to have a solid defense. So I think mistakes will kill them. So, if they could somehow, I don't even think they have to get to 20 touchdown passes. If you could just get, 15, 18 touchdown passes, but only have, 6, 7 interceptions, I think that they would be, pretty happy. Because like I said, the defensive side of the ball, hey, one of their biggest success stories, and to show you the culture, I went back to that. They have a guy, one of the best pass rushers in the MAC, go in the portal. So he doesn't play the spring game. And as you know, you assume when somebody goes in the portal, they're gone, right? His name was Kobe Stewart, and he was one of the best pass rushers in the MAC. And since he's not at the spring game, you just say, okay, well, Kobe Stewart's not going to be on the team. He's going to be someplace else. After the spring game, he looked at the portal, obviously had some sniffs, and decided that UB was better for him. That's rare. Again, I just think that that's rare for a program like the MAC. Usually when a guy is the best pass rusher or one of the best pass rushers in the MAC and he hits the portal, see you later, pal. He's gone. Also, defensively, they had the 2 number 1 and number 2 tacklers in the nation. Sean Dolak, who is now a local guy who's with the Los Angeles Rams, and Red Murdoch. I just assumed Red Murdoch was number 2 in the country in tackles. He's going to go someplace. Again, he comes back. Again, it just goes to what Lembo is doing here. I didn't expect at the end of the season to have him back. And it just goes by to the culture. The bowl game against Liberty. So it's not just the UB when I said that they brought their whole team. Mm-hmm. The national media that was there went to Sean Dolak and said, "You're not playing in this game, right? I mean, come on, you're going to risk injury." And he was like, "No, I'm not gonna give up on my teammates. That's not what I do." That's kind of old school. I mean, we come from, Cam Ward quits at halftime and nobody makes him pay the price of that, right? That's the modern, and you've got the announcers make an excuse for Cam Ward. And then the national media is saying, Sean Dolak, you're not going to play. And Sean Dolak said, yes, I am going to play. I'm going to play the whole game. It's just at least that mindset, and which we grew up saying, well, that's just football. You don't give up on your teammates, right? You don't give up your teammates at halftime. That's what we're doing right now, and it's the norm, and it's a shame. It really is a shame, Ryan. But what was taken for granted my whole life seems to be the exception rather than the rule now. And it's very nice what's going on at UB, but it's a shame that it's really not the rule anymore.
Oh, believe me, I know. Don't get me started. I could do a 2-hour show on couldas, shoulda, wouldas, the way it used to be as opposed to is now. It just aggravates me more and more every time I talk about it or get into it. But so let's transition to the summer and then the fall. I was looking at the schedule. They opened up against Minnesota. That's a Thursday night game. It's at Huntington Bank Stadium. Look, Minnesota tends to not blow anybody out. So why not? I mean, why not? You go to Buffalo, maybe you get a win. They play St. Francis the following week. That should be a W. Look, Kent State is not a football school. They should win that one. Then they play Troy, which kind of is iffy, but you get them at home. Then they play UConn again. Tough. Look, then they play Eastern Michigan at home. So 3 straight home games. Eastern Michigan last year sort of fell off a little bit, to be quite honest with you. Then they have the bye week. Then they're at UMass. Let's be honest, ladies and gentlemen, UMass is not a hotbed for football.
Nope.
Home against Akron. Akron, along with Kent, really not a lot of football tradition there. At Bowling Green, tough. Another bye week. At Central Michigan, always tough. Miami and Ohio to finish out the year. I've got 3 games circled as far as the MAC goes. The last 3. At Central, home against Miami, home against Ohio, could make or break the season.
No, you're right. And it's really, I think, the last 2 because Bowling Green, who was really good last year, remember their coach, Scott Loeffler, is now left for the Eagles. So whenever a coach leaves, you just don't know which way it's going to go. It could be good, just like it was for UB, or it could go the way of Kent State, which not only did you go down in the dumps, but you become the worst team in football, in college football. So you just don't know the way it's going to go there with Bowling Green. So I totally agree with you. I think those last couple of games, if things go right for this team, they could be, undefeated in the MAC because it starts out, Kent State, Eastern Michigan, UMass, Akron. You're really there's a lot of wins there in the MAC. You should be rolling, and you should be able to get that quarterback. Because what happened last year, CJ Agbana didn't start out great, but he finished. I think that as the year went on, and if the same thing happens this year, I think you do have a little room for error there, if you would, with those first couple of MAC games. Certainly, you're going to probably lose at Minnesota if he's not great. You're going to lose at home to UConn. But when it comes to MAC play, I think the easier part of the schedule is early, and you got to be playing your best football those last 2 games against Miami of Ohio and Ohio.
A couple of things, and then I'll let you go here. Look, I always try to get people's different perspectives across the country in every conference and every part of the land. That's why I do this. College football is my passion. I love the pageantry. I love the rivalries. I just love the Saturdays. Bob, look, you're in the thick of it out there in the MAC. We were talking a little bit, before the show. How do the MAC administrators, just to say the presidents, coaches, ADs, how do they combat the whole NIL transfer portal? You're talking about culture. Now, at places like Buffalo, guys may be a little bit more inclined to stay at said school. But how is this all affecting, MAC's the smaller conference, Mountain West, the Sun Belt. How does this all fit into the MAC's equation?
Well, I think in some cases in the MAC, when it comes to basketball, let's say, and football, some of the coaches are saying that, give me a couple of years and then I'll make you money. But you think the big programs aren't recruiting out of high school anymore, it seems like, right? The big programs are going to the MAC and taking their best players or so. So do you try and fight that, or do you kind of lean into that? And I think a lot of MAC coaches are leaning into that and, recruiting kids out of high school and saying, if you give me, first couple of good years, I'll make you money. Then, your last couple of years, if you go to a power conference. So since you can't compete with money, you've got to do other things. One, as I mentioned, is it's like getting a job. If it's all about money, you're not coming to UB. But if you talk about that, I like my boss, I like that I can work from home. If you go to the other things that go around, in getting a job, then UB has a chance. So I think that culture and that good communication, when I talk about that, those are the things that, UB has got to play up, because it's their only way to even try and compete in this landscape of NIL and instant transfer, which is just, driving me crazy.
Yeah. And then the last thing, we were talking about the college football playoff.
Mm-hmm.
Look, this is my thing. If you're going to have a 16-team playoff, there should be no automatic bids, period. As far as I'm concerned, if you win your regular season championship, great. Fantastic. Good for you. If you have a conference championship at the end of the year, if you win it, good for you. Fantastic. I think you play the year, and then at the end of the year, after all is said and done, the committee should be have people who watch college football 24/7. Those are the kinds of people that should be on the committee. At the end of the year, no automatic bids. The committee sits in there and says, okay, we're going to pick the 16 best teams as we see fit, and then we're going to seed them as we see fit. I don't like the automatic bids, Bob. Last year, it was a blueprint for a disaster. It was a disaster, to be quite honest with you, as far as I was concerned. Boise or whoever was ranked fourth shouldn't have been ranked fourth. But what say you about the college football playoff? I know you had a couple of things before we came on.
I hate it. I hate what it's done to college football because I think the people didn't think through it. And what it did was college football, other than the Premier Soccer League, was all about the regular season. Every game is important. And if you lose one game, you might be out. The Labor Day game between Ohio State and Texas, the loser of that game, some years, hey, sorry, thanks for playing. Your season for the national championship is done before Labor Day. I loved that about college football. Now that's changed. So I didn't think that was thought through. You've diminished what the regular season. You mentioned the two biggest upsets in college football. Northern Illinois beat Notre Dame. Michigan beat Ohio State. Who played for the national championship? Notre Dame and Ohio State. What does that mean? It means the two biggest upsets in college football regular season meant nothing. The conference championship games, that they mean nothing now. Ohio State got an advantage for not playing in a conference championship game. So you've diminished the regular season. You've diminished the conference championship games. You've made every other bowl game. And again, I know you probably, like me, maybe not everybody, love the other bowl games. I love bowl games. Nobody plays in them anymore because they know that they don't matter. You've diminished every single other bowl game. Again, I just don't know if it was thought through. it's not you. It's to me, it's like you sold your soul to the devil for these 11 games, but you didn't think it through what it meant for college football as a whole and what it has meant, for my whole life. It's changing. Maybe I'm just some old geezer now that sounds like the old guy at the end of the bar that's complaining. You don't realize it. You're not with the times, but I'm telling you, it wasn't always this way. And I love the game and I love the traditions, and I don't like what it is doing to the traditional games like the Ohio State-Michigan game, which I think is making it potentially irrelevant if there's 4 teams, like you mentioned, if there's 4 Big Ten teams in the college football playoff. Some years, 40% of the time, 30% of the time, Ohio State and Michigan are going to be 2 of those 4 teams. What is that going to do to that game? They're not even going to – what are they going to have sit players? Again, I'm sorry. I'm rambling. I could go on for a long time. I don't like what is that first year. And the players knew about it. Think about the Tennessee quarterback that already in year 1 was ready to sit out. He realizes that he's got all the power now. And you think that's going to stop this year? No, you're going to have guys in those 11 games that are going to sit out. So you sold yourself, in my mind, you sold your soul to the devil, and you're still going to have players sit out the playoff games. It almost happened in year 1. What do you think is going to happen in year 5? Go. I'm sorry. I rambled.
Mean, the Tennessee quarterback, when it came out, his agent was asking for more money because it was the playoffs. You lose me. Look, Bob, I don't even like end of the year conference championship games anymore because it just takes away from it. Look, whoever wins the regular season championship, there's your champion. The championship games now are just another way to make money. I don't know if they'll go away, but look, 30 years ago when the SEC started that and it split into 2 divisions, it was a fantastic idea. I don't think it's a fantastic idea anymore. Look, the MAC had a championship. Ohio had Miami of Ohio. I mean, what does it prove other than, okay, this particular team might have an extra win, and we are a conference championship game. I just don't like the way everything is seeded. I don't like everything the way it's going in the way of the end of the championship games. Look, Bob, I don't like the AP poll anymore. I don't like the coaches poll because guess what? After the second week, it changes. It's never the same. If the publications want to come out with their preseason stuff, magazine-wise, great. They should get rid of the AP poll, the coaches poll. What they should do, if they're going to have the college football playoff poll, play half the season first with no rankings, and then start ranking them after halfway point in the season. I don't know how you feel, because the AP, the coaches poll, it doesn't matter because after the first, second week, it's jumbled anyway.
Well, no, and what it does, though, it makes that team that started at 25 so much harder to get up in there. So I totally agree with you. Don't even start the polls until week 6 or 7 or something like that, till they're going, because it's really an unfair advantage. And for years, before this started, it would be like, the Boise States and the TCUs that actually had really good teams years ago, and they just couldn't compete with teams that were already ranked 5 in the nation when they were ranked 25 at the start of the season. So I totally agree with you with the polls. I think that's the way it should be done. But again, a lot of these things that we're talking about is putting toothpaste back in the tube, and with the NIL and the instant transfer, and nobody's happy with it. They didn't think it through, and now they're hoping like Congress steps in, right? That's where we are. The only chance we have is these politicians that can't get anything done. We're hoping that they could save college football. That's what it's become, because they know that it's pretty much a system that is screwed up.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's Bob Gaughan. Tell all the people out there where they can get a hold of you, see your stuff, XYZ.
Yeah, well, I mean, our games are on the Bulls Network on WWKB. So if you get a chance, listen to some UB games this year. Watch some action. Midweek action is always a blast. So as you said, if you're a true fan of college football, maybe tune into the MAC sometime this year. I think you'll enjoy it.
Sometime in August, Bob, I'm going to have my second annual college football 2025. Well, it'll be a preview special. Last year it was 3 hours. I might make it 4 this year. There's just so much to talk about. I still like the pageantry. I still love college football. I don't like all the other shenanigans. I think it takes away from it. And it's like Bob said, guys aren't going to school anymore for an education. Period. To fall back on what they're doing is, if Ohio State can give me $5 million in an NIL deal and Michigan can give me $7 million, guess where I'm going? And that's what it's come down to. And go ahead.
Well, the problem with that is when you're all about money, then it's all about money. And you're not, when the Michigan quarterback grows up as an LSU fan and he goes to Michigan for money, I just want to warn Michigan, he doesn't bleed maize and blue. So The first time he gets any pressure, guess what he's going to do? He's going to leave. And that's the problem. When it's all about money, then it's all about money. And nobody's invested the way they used to be invested, in it. And that's, I think some of the bigger programs are finding that out, that, people are making decisions all on dollars and cents. And it's not the old way that they were making decisions. Yeah. And it's good. I think I really do. And again, this is the game I've loved my whole life. I'm going back to the early 70s here. I could talk the history of college football with you. This is the game I've loved my whole life. And where it's going, again, I hate to be Debbie Downer here, but it could implode on itself. I really think they screwed up badly. And I just don't have high hopes for it if it continues to go down this path. I don't know if you see some great things coming out of it, but I really don't.
Last thing I'll point out is, I said this 5-10 years ago. I blame Greg Sankey. I mean, I'm a Florida Gator. That's my team. When he allowed Oklahoma and Texas to come into the SEC. It just opened the floodgates for all this other stuff. Transfer portal was already in place. Once Oklahoma and Texas decided to defect to the SEC, then everybody else started scrambling. And the thing of it is, it's the SEC and the Big Ten are going to try and do their own thing. And anybody else who wants to come with us, great. You already see the ACC talking about potentially disbanding. All this other stuff is going on. Everybody is waiting for the SEC and the Big Ten to do something. It's going to be a reaction. And I hate it because the Big Ten and the SEC they're tired of dealing with the NCAA. So let's break off and do our own thing and have our own national championship game. Bob, it's not college football anymore. It is semi-pro athletics at the college level with the transfer portal. It's free agency. And you're talking about all this cash. Players are going to have contracts. They're going to have the agents, obviously. They're going to have their general managers. Andrew Luck is the general manager of the Stanford athletic program.
Yeah. Well, and the traditions are gone. You mentioned about Oklahoma and Texas. What just came out a couple of weeks ago? USC is thinking about getting rid of the Notre Dame. Why is that? Well, because for 100 years, when USC would come east, it was special. 55 years ago, they went to Alabama in the famous Sam Bam Cunningham game where, Sam Bam Cunningham did more in 60 minutes than Martin Luther King did in 20 years, whether you believe it or not, whatever. That game was special because it was USC coming east. Now, USC in the Big Ten, is it special that they come east? Not at all. They come east all the time. So what happens? They say to Notre Dame, or they're thinking about it, and I think it will happen, well, let's just get out of this series. It doesn't make sense for us anymore. And that's where I'm saying where this is going, these traditions that I grew up on. I grew up on that Notre Dame USC game. I grew up on these great Auburn, Alabama games, and down south in Georgia and Florida. I grew up on these games, and I just feel that a lot of these games are just going to be diminished as time goes on, and it pains me.
Oregon State doesn't mean much anymore. Washington State doesn't mean much anymore. Michigan, Ohio State doesn't mean squat anymore, to be quite honest with you. Auburn, Alabama, what does it really mean? Florida, Tennessee, Texas and Oklahoma, they're still going to call it the Red River Rivalry. It doesn't mean squat anymore. So it loses its luster again. I still like the pageantry. I still get into it. I watch college football from 12 o'clock on Saturday till 2 a.m. on Sunday morning. It's just my passion. But again, Bob, thanks so much for coming on. I will have to pick your brain again in August.
You got it, Brett Ryan. Thank you very much. Take care.
Thank you. Let's play it out. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Again, if you don't check out Maction throughout the season, you're doing yourself a disservice. Just from the simple fact is Buffalo plays Minnesota August 28th. I'm all about that. I want to see how it stacks up. And then those last 4 games of the year, Buffalo at Bowling Green, hell yeah, I'm going to watch that. Buffalo at Central Michigan, sure, I'm going to watch that. Miami and Ohio to end the season, of course I'm going to watch that. Haul my ass to the casino where they have 50 freaking TVs, and I'll watch. Why? Because, again, college football is my passion. I hate to beat a dead horse. I don't like where it's headed. It sucks. Well, I've led my team to the playoffs. I should get more money for the playoffs. Take a hike. Shove it. If I'm the coach of said football team and I'm making the playoffs, let's say I'm a 5 seed, and my quarterback comes and says, well, I need more money. I led the team to the playoffs. Well, sit your ass on the bench. No. That's not the way it works. And if that's the way you are and you want to bail on your football team and you're asking for more money, you can leave. Plain and simple. Let's see here. Let me get to some college baseball. Double elimination round. UCLA is up, UCLA and LSU, bottom of the first. It's 3. Actually, LSU just scored. It's 4-3 LSU. Earlier today, Arkansas beat Murray State 3-0. That was an elimination game. So Murray State, I believe, is finito. Tomorrow, elimination game, Oregon State and Louisville. And Arkansas, I believe, will play the winner of the UCLA LSU series. Keep an eye on that. Other college sport. Let me go back to football. Some of it I've already been through. I'm not going to go through the transfer portal, who signed who soon, because it makes me want to puke. It really does. I mean, nothing's really some of anything. I did see an update on like the potential Pac-12. Texas State is a potential candidate to join. If you remember, the other than Oregon State and Washington State, Fresno State's coming over, San Diego State's coming over, Boise State's coming over, and Colorado State's coming over. So that's 6. UNLV and Air Force just said nada. And Utah State. So they're up to 7. Texas State would join, that would be 8. Definitely keep an eye on that. Again, I want to thank Bob Gaughan for coming on. I always root for the little guy. You know, I'm always rooting for the Buffaloes, the Eastern Michigan, like everybody in the MAC I root for. Because obviously that conference has a tough, as does the well, what's left of the Mountain West. The Sun Belt, the American Athletic Conference USA. I'm always rooting for the little guys. Even though I'm a Florida Gator fan. I didn't see any other major college football news that popped out at me. I think I went, well, maybe I didn't. So ESPN came out with their power rankings. It came out June 11th. I'm just going to go down their power rankings as it stood on June 11th. BYU 25th, Louisville 24th, Iowa 23rd, Missouri 22nd, Kansas State 21st, Indiana 20th, Iowa State 19th, South Carolina 18th, Illinois 17th, Ole Miss 16th, Florida 15th, SMU would be 14th, Michigan 13th, Arizona State 12th, Miami 11th, Alabama 10th, Tennessee 9th, LSU 8th, Clemson 7th, Penn State 6th, Notre Dame 5th, Oregon 4th, Georgia 3rd, Ohio State 2nd, and you've got Texas numero uno. This is all going to change. It's all bullshit anyway. I don't really follow it. Because it changes week to week. In June, to come out with your power rankings is asinine. Stupid. Again, thanks for Bob Gaughan coming on. I will see everybody over on StreamYard. Or I'm sorry, not StreamYard, No Filter Network. For early evening sports buffet with Ginch. Me right now. Thanks to everybody who tunes in. Again, thanks to Bob Gaughan. I'm out here. I'll see everybody at 8 o'clock.
Well, I tried to make it Sunday, but I got so damn depressed that I set my sights on Monday, and I got myself undressed. I ain't ready.